every game, every series, and it felt like they got better and better because they didn't make any drastic changes. They just got better at what they were already doing.
They got better at what they're already doing, and they also fulfilled the very thing we kind of had been told for so much of the split, right? We hadn't seen it.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We
promised, guys, we're good.
Yeah.
But they themselves had promised. Other teams had promised that this EG squad is being underestimated time and time again, and to be fair to them, they were underestimated coming into today as well.
Every single player that faced them in scrims were like, no, EG, like, they're good. And we did not see that until the TL series, I would say. We did not see that form that everyone had talked about until that TL loss in the upper bracket. And then we certainly saw it running through the lower bracket.
Yeah.
Exactly, and remember, like, just kind of zeroing in on Jojo Pyun as well, when he made mistakes during the regular season and the starting points, versus Team Liquid in the playoffs, those were mistakes when he's playing aggressively, taking a risk, right? You learn real conclusions from doing just that, and so that's what makes you better, not playing passively.
Order exists because of me.
That this draft came down to the top laners being left at the end, right? The Aatrox coming out as the pick against the Ornn and how that's going to look. Because you guys are talking about the history of Someday and Impact. These guys predate the modern LCK.
League of Legends because of me.
LOL 챔피언스 코리아 결승전에 오신
Oh god, no. Oh god,
환영합니다.
that messed up.
Your behavior is unacceptable. Purity of form, purity of function. There are two sides to every issue. My side and the wrong side.
Fortunately, that doesn't stop him from
I am employed when negotiations fail. Regret is what tempers the steel of our soul.
Flash and Ghost. Don't do that. Don't do that. Oh my fucking god.
I am out of patience.
An enemy has been slain.
Oh my god, you're just the dumbest thing ever. He was dead. Yeah, I mean, not dead. He was fine. Literally put us into a great position. He sees you.
An enemy has been slain.
I have no mana. My mana was at 0%.
Bravado is contrary to tradition. This world isn't for amateurs.
setting up bindings, those realm warps can be so impactful in the early parts of the game.
Not to interrupt the draft, but every single time T1 pick a champion, you get the boomsticks in the audience clapping together. So just, you know, kind of let you know how the fans are feeling right now about this finals. Yeah, can give you a little bit of insight into that.
Love this Corky ban.
Yeah, it has been a pick that Chovy has actually gone back to with such great efficiency. The drop that they already have, especially if you bolster with the Gragas as well, is extremely obnoxious to play into. The Galio, an often seen counter pick into the Rise, now also taken away. TF also being banned in the first rotation. So a lot of the common answers that we do see picked up will not be given over here to Gen G, and Jungle Pool is getting whittled down as well.
Yeah.
But there is still the possibility of a Jarvan into an Ezreal, not expecting they'll go that. Zinzao, even though he's dropped in Prio, would be an option as well.
I think that for the mid lane, there are so many options still available for Chovy in terms of late game scaling that pair up with this draft so incredibly well. The Azir actually has a lot of kill pressure with Volibear and is going to be very strong in the late game if he actually gets there, which is the expectation with this Ezreal Karma draft so far. Nocturne gonna be locked in, so it gets hyped about it. And this is a pick that works so extremely well with the CC they have to set up.
Importantly, we saw the Trundle hover, whereas it's a good matchup into the Volibear specifically. Into an Ezreal, it always feels pretty unfortunate. Arcane Shift denies so much of the power, and the global pressure that you have with the T1 composition, with both the Paranoia and the ultimate from the Rise already bolstered by those aggressive lanes, is going to be a nightmare for Gen G. Unless they can find the shove back, right? Unless they can match. And with Ornn, they're saying no.
Yeah.
We're not looking for Prio. We're looking for a consistent team farm threat.
Lehen's just shouting out the fans for his very famous Singed pick here. But I like the Ornn, and it goes into that territory of putting Chovy on a late game carry mage, be it a Victor or that Azir, where he's going to be able to shore up a ton of that damage, and it will be the Victor to come through here. Volibear loses some power in this draft, but can actually get you through the mid game pretty well at those power spikes, set up some stuns, survive through those first few Drake fights, get to the late game, get those ornaments online, and Gen G's late game comp is fantastic.
Just have to get there, and that's going to be pretty hard. If you look at the amount of power that T1 have, Camille, one of the few top lane bruisers that can actually deal with tanks due to the true damage and precision protocol. And the 1-for-1 of T1 is disgusting, frankly. There is so much setup available. There is Paranoia, there is Shove on bot side, there is Rise in the mid lane, and there is a Camille, and if any of those members get fed, playing around it becomes so incredibly easy. But Gen G, they've won unwinnable games with very similar drafts.
And it really just is about how well Gen G can survive to get to a point where these items come online, the ornaments come online. I think this might even be a Crown of the Shattered Queen game here for Chovy, because he needs to be able to side lane, he needs to be able to farm those items up with the Nocturne Camille. It's just so hard to get out on the map, feel safe, feel like you can get those minions, get the gold that you so desperately need to win those 25, 30, 35-minute team fights.
Certainly Gen G would love to have some of those team fights. We'll see if T1 allow them to, and how far they can push their lead and get their solo lanes ahead, as we will have the battles coming down, and yep, you're running down the same walkway there. This Bolton score side by side, the coaches of these two fantastic teams. So yeah, here are our compositions.
I feel like, given T1's history with shutting down compositions that do well in the late game, in the mid game, by actually hitting spikes early, getting early turret play control with a champion like Caitlyn, winning that 2v2, trying to be aggressive down there, using Realm Warps aggressively, Nocturne ults aggressively, and this Camille side laning power, I think they're just going to be too hard to slow down here for Gen G.
Gonna be a desperate effort from Gen G.
And here we go, on to the rift for game number 1. I didn't even realize how perfect that song is, by the way, the lyrics. I win every time.
Every time.
It certainly tells a story, as a lot of our production has been doing so very well so far for this series.
They did win every time, yeah. They're undefeated as of right now. So I wonder whether it's going to continue. As mentioned previously, we can go a little bit more into the choices that have been made. Most notably Faker. We have seen a ton of the unsuccessful Rise being picked up, has gone back to the phase rush instead, which I kind of like in terms of possibilities of aggression, especially together with Ona. Do you think the T1 composition generally wants to wait a little bit until that Paranoia becomes available and immediate applause at the very first trade?
Yeah.
Gotta love it.
The hand's gonna hit big on that one in the early part of this. And you know, the difference here in these compositions to really highlight is that if T1 cannot find a lead in the mid game, as they are so famous for doing, the Rise will never be able to do the same amount of damage as the Victor will in the late game, and you will lose wars of attrition against this Ezreal that has more consistent damage output than a Caitlyn, who's in an even game will be able to perform with. And then you're stuck trying to make plays with this Lux, who's fairly fragile as well.
Okay, fighting over level 2, the flash forward as Carrier's going for it with the Q of his own. That's going to be a trade. His first blood is given over to the Ezreal. Kumiusi able to trade one back as our supports, they were ready to fight.
And that's going to be a first kill for both the AD carries here. Favorable trade in terms of summoners for Gen G, but man, starting off right from the get-go, we saw Peanut also pathing towards top side, or bot side rather. Might look for maybe an invade or a punish on Faker. They don't know where he is, and he might get caught off guard as he goes to ward.
Well, that's not the brush you wanted to check here, as Faker just gonna die. Had no vision there. They had a ward in the jungle, but they did not know where Peanut was.
All right, Gen G are starting off high speed in this best of 5 here, and this is a tragedy for T1's composition. You start trading like this, you start giving a Victor gold this early, and it is a disaster. The first blood going over to Ruler here. Flash, you know, expended here on the side of Carrier, so he's a little bit more vulnerable too. And so far, this 2v2 going in their favor. They get that kill in the mid lane, and Chovy is accelerated. And this is one of the angles I was thinking, you know, most analysts saying, okay, bottom 2v2 is going to be the most important matchup, but for me, it's the mid jungle skirmish where Faker falls behind and they fall apart.
And we see level 2 hit slightly earlier for Lands and Ruler. Gumayushi and Carrier still go all in here.
Okay.
I think he's coming. He's gonna come down. I'm going in. He says.
잡을 것 같은데.
And it's a really good setup. We got him. Nice.
요 정도.
Just like that. Basically, is what he said. Yeah. Keep doing this.
And I think it was partially because they really didn't have a good idea of where he was. I mean, there was a ward on the Raptors, but I'm not sure how early that came in. And yeah, he just cleared his entire jungle, went red to Raptors, down to Krugs. As now Carry is looking to over, I guess.
I think the read from T1 was that as he pulled the Raptors into the brush, he then moved upwards towards the blue side, skipping Krugs, which we see very often, but instead went for a full tier bot side, wasn't spotted, possibly looking to maybe assist, set up a play on that bot side, onto Gumayushi and Carrier, but then 2v2 happened, and then he was able to move back up towards that mid lane regardless.
AS is having a great time in this matchup early. As you can see on the top side.
Yep.
This is how it's going to go. At least Doran can itemize against this from lane. Not giving him opportunities here to even get all of those minion last hits. But, you know, in terms of how this lane state now is going to be for Chovy, it gives him so much power. He took first strike. He's going to be able to harass a lot. As you can see, the win rates for 22 spring for these bot duos. Ezreal Karma doing better. But now Chovy is in a position where he can actually pressure Faker. Where he can actually push him out of waves, and usually Rise's power in the early game is actually having perma cryo. Not going to be the case in this early game.
Note also that Owner has just been power farming. Wants to get to 6 as soon as humanly possible, as you do on the Nocturne. And just off of that lead, as well as the top side that Zeus has been able to find for himself, we actually have the early gold lead from a kill already being completely negated. And this has been such a consistent thing for T1, where they always, no matter the circumstances, are able to get trades up in terms of gold. Owner, I don't know about this one.
Yeah, Peanut again. It's gonna get collapsed on, and Faker's backing right now, but with that spell shield, should be okay. Chovy is coming over to help poke him away, but Didn't quite get there on time, so Owner is able to squeak out of that one.
And Gen G have been a big fan of the early Drakes and expecting to see them continue doing that here.
But this is such an early Drake that it allows them to reset for the Rift Herald fight as well. And this is the power of Toby getting that first blood. Normally, you know, a lot of matchups, Ryze just dominates. The Victor one can be a little bit more volatile, but you get an early kill like that, you're the one pushing in the Ryze. They find Owner early, deny him the ability to shut this Drake down, and Gen G have such masterful control of this game. And yes, T1, this is the power farming you mentioned, catch up in gold, now take a gold lead, as they're so famous for, but their competition needs to have a bigger lead than this 10 minutes from now, and Gen G are already smooth sailing.
And Owner's here again, but he's got to get in there and smite this away, but he doesn't quite have smite. The Q also going to miss, so Peanut gets ahead of them on that scuttle at least, although Owner's still ahead on team.
Key thing, Owner's still not 6. That first paranoia is a really big one. Need to try to set up a successful play. Can of course go for topside with Zaze, has the Exec ultimatum. Doran has the way of shoving into him, right? So he can just set up shop in front of his turret, and diving an Ornn is generally unadvisable, especially Doran, seeing what he does with those.
And it's a Karma lane bottom. Doran has just been playing almost perma weak side in the last few series that Gen G have played, and once again he's just going to sit back and take that pressure. As you can see that this is also kind of a relic of this season. Victor very popular early.
That was very much a early of spring record, as I'm very glad you did point out. We saw a lot of Ryze versus Victor. Ryze is not winning a lot of games against anyone. But either way, as Carrier's going to flash in for the poke, and the trap not quite enough to land onto Lahens there, and he will get out of there alive. And a huge shot barrage hits both of them.
I really appreciate the idea right before Herald here, but unfortunately not going to work out for Keria. Both summoners down now, unfortunately, for this critical fight, and it's not even really a trade up here in any way, and Ruler wasn't even there to actually punish. Like, it was a good idea because of Ruler's positioning, but doesn't end up working out here. Now down flash before what is going to be, and has been historically, T1's most important objective.
And with Peanut continuously playing aggressive, being allowed by the trio that he has in mid and bot, we actually see that because they're aware of Owner, because they generally know which half of the map he is, he hasn't been able to find paranoia play, but also Ruler and Lahens can actually push up that far and be fine. And now we are going into this first fight for the Herald, possibly with everyone being on relative bottom parity. Gold, that even.
This is really, really tough. They have 2 global ultimates to use to close the gap here. No flash for Keria, no mid trio.
Yeah, they already have this pretty low as we stand, and they're going up against an Ornn. Let's see if T1 can do anything, as the Ornn will come through, as a big knock-up now from Doran on the top side, but you can see the rest of Gen G just going to leave Doran to die. They say, nope, we're not going to be able to help you here. And so Gen Z do get the kill on the Rift Herald, but they cannot pick up the eye, and T1 take the fight.
Great fight here from T1, utilizing their ultimates as they all come online here.
Boy.
This is the type of fight that T1 always takes on Herald. And Gen Z, yes, they got a pretty explosive start to this game, had a great early game, but the competition still isn't quite online yet to hold on to that Rift Herald so tightly.
Deus is really playing with fire, but actually
My main
calculation knows that he should be relatively safe, although will he calculate that Peanut is up here to help out? Doesn't look like Peanut can get there on time.
Not even with the Void Barrel, when Peanut has him back
I'm
to
that
quite
man,
fast, still
man.
sitting only full fields, and don't want to take that risk. And I thought that the setup
Wait,
was
my
definitely
man,
a possibility,
man.
but crucially,
My
that
man,
paranoia makes it
dog.
so hard for Gen G
Dog.
to actually coordinate in this fight. And I'm pretty sure that's a big reason. We see Doran going very aggressively. The rest of his team, they literally don't know, right? You can't see T1. They're not able to actually know if that ultimate lands. Can we follow up? Because of that, T1 get the early fight win there, and Guma, even with that first blood going up to Ruler, is getting more and more fed now.
A lot of Paranoia users, you know, a lot of Nocturnes would actually go onto the backline carries there, but that's what Gen G was hoping for in that choke point. Oh, they're going to dive deep. Nope, they just go onto Doran, collapse and cut the team in half. And really hard to communicate in situations like this. That's the part of the power of Paranoia. It's not just shutting down side lanes and getting on top of the backline. It's just straight up blinding your enemy team.
Yeah, and it matters too for the composition of T1, because if they had, you know, like a, I don't know, a Hecarim or a Vex alongside of this, then maybe you could dive in as a team, but Owner has identified that at this point, okay, I'm just here, you know, throw it down. I'm not really going to dive in. My team can't follow up that well, especially not yet, especially before Camille doesn't even have an item.
That's the main thing. Zeus later on, I'm sure he'd be happy to join. Backline Camille, one of the very few top laners that can reliably lock down a slippery pick like the Ezreal. But for now, that is not going to be the case just yet. But again, that coordination that works out really well for T1. And coming into today, we were expecting Zeus to have an edge in the matchup. And yes, it was a blind Orn from
he's going in for this one. I don't think he's got a queue up in time to really chunk it down. So that's Hextech Ultimatum gone. Right before some teleports are up, but of course 3 minutes or so until the Unleashed teleport is available.
Critically, if Gen V get a 2-Drake advantage of this composition, they can just sit back and wait. It's going to give them such a huge edge, especially because it's going to be a critical Drake, either Mountain, Hextech, or Infernal here. So very important for T1 to actually deny this fight right now. Then Zeus, of course, teleport coming online just now, but it's leashed, so it won't be able to actually come in at the last possible second. It doesn't have ultimates. This is essentially a 4v4.
And with the vision being taken by T1 in the river and Cryo in bot side, Faken also getting in a mid, it's really hard for Gen G to actually contest this. They have to walk into the poke of Guma, of Carrier, and if they slightly overextend, immediately Owner will pull the trigger, Faker can realm warp in, so if T1 wanted, they could keep that all tight, but it looks like instead they're gonna choose to pick this one up, and I can see the logic behind it. Yeah, but they also instead get more control on the top side of the map. I don't know if that's a great trade, especially with Infernal Rift on the map.
Yeah, and it's top side for a Rift Trail that spawns in 2 minutes, and its second Rift Trail plates are going to be gone. Not that critical. Root connects.
Yep. No follow-up on that one. Guma not quite close enough. And yeah, definitely a choice that T1 decided to make, you know. As instead they are going to try to highlight this top side as here comes the paranoia. It's 3-on-1 and Doran does not have any hope as Faker will eat a lot of those turret shots, as will Owner, but the kill is still there.
It's a faster Ornhorn. Maybe you turn this one around. One of the most difficult champions in League of Legends to dive is the Ornn, but it's a very late Ornn coming out from Doran. Waits till the last possible second with the flash, and as a result, will go down. So T1 do not give the streak up for free, but I think the 2-Drake lead is much more valuable.
Between the hookshot and Faker's instant root, it's so hard for the Ornn as well to actually find the second activation on the ultimate. And Peanut, he gets the play.
Yeah, Hextech Ultimatum is available now, and Peanut, yeah, you're not going to be able to ult out of this one. Don't believe that Karma will help either against this much lockdown. We just saw these three in the top side, and they do it again to the bear.
Lots of greed here from Peanut. Grabs a plate, but will give over a lot more gold to T1, really keeping them in a lead in terms of that gold advantage right now, because 4 kills to 2 and a 900 gold lead. Yeah, it looks great now at 14 minutes as plates fall off, but in 10 minutes time, you're going to need a bigger one than that. At least this dive is successful, and as you mentioned, there's so many ways to shut down the second activation. He has no chance here to pull that one off. But the 2-Drake lead is what I'm really most concerned about, because now Gen V can just avoid taking fights.
Again, there is no vision coverage on top side. They invested teleport as well. Gen G, one play is not going to be a breaking point for you, right? You can let them have the free fine. You don't need to get the play. You have Ornn, Victor, and Ezreal. I think you'll be fine. Without the extra gold that you get.
A bit of a lapse of judgment for sure, especially with the lack of vision, but
hey, oh my god, they were like, get me out of